Video by Emmanuel Isaiah Smith. Thanks for tuning in.
Hello, good afternoon. It is your host, Emmanuel Isaiah Smith, and today's date is Sunday, December 28th, 2025. The time is 1:05 p.m., and I am in Miami, Florida. The topic of today's lecture is Blistering Rebuke. And ladies and gentlemen, before I get into the main talking points of this lecture, this amazing holiday season, I would like to address a number of matters. The first matter I'd like to address is the reality of state-sanctioned thuggery having become law. And I'm going to keep my comments on this particular matter brief as we move into the main talking points of the lecture. It's like this. I think with the United States government in particular, most United States citizens have had kind of a sense of being awestruck at the United States federal government, its trajectory over the past 250 years, etc., its capacity to produce, at least in the 80s through the 2000s, top quality business constructs, top quality media enterprises, top quality political institutions, top quality military institutions, law enforcement institutions, athletic institutions, religious institutions, academic institutions, financial institutions. I mean, just go down the list. All right. I think before the break of the, or rather the breakout of the internet age in which we presently live, I think that the typical U.S. citizen just looked around him or her and just said, wow, you know, this is the United States. This is the country I'm born in. I'm definitely in awe of what I see. I'm proud of what I see. And I believe that the United States is respected around the world, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it's got In God We Trust on our money, et cetera, et cetera. It's a Christian nation, et cetera, et cetera. And you know what? Everything just seems right with this country. Everything just seems right with the world. Everything just seems right with what you might describe as North America, the Western Hemisphere, you know, America's allies. I mean, everything just kind of clicked into a wonderful international societal structure almost. And then I think when the internet age began to slowly but surely take over the global consciousness, I think people who were more enterprising with investigations and research utilized Google and Encyclopedia Britannica, Wikipedia, Yahoo search engine, Microsoft search engines, and so many different data retrieval tools to do more research on how things work, not only in the United States, but throughout the world. And I think the more information became available on the World Wide Web as to the inner workings of any government, any company, any religious institution, anywhere in the world, that at some point people started looking at America a little less favorably, typically, because you got to see some of the expenditures and some of the adventures and some of the various enterprises that this country has undertaken at the expense of its own citizens and at the expense of citizens around the world. And you look around and you go, oh, interesting. That's how it works. Or that's how this works. Or that's how those enterprises work. Or that's how these enterprises work. So that's how foreign policy is decided. That's how alliances and adversaries are made. Interesting. That's how countries go bankrupt, or that's how countries get an A credit rating from World Bank. Or, oh, interesting, that's how these military adventures overseas came about. Oh, interesting, that's how these various military conflicts really started. Or, interesting, that's why you see such high incarceration rates in this part of the country as opposed to that part of the country, and why you see higher incarceration rates in this city as opposed to that city. And it goes far beyond race. Okay, it's naive to think that incarceration is about race. As a matter of fact, I can guarantee and assure you that is the last thing it's about. Okay? It's an enterprise. All right? Just as anything is an enterprise. But ultimately, gang stalking is also an enterprise. It is not people just randomly wandering about, just happening to be at the same place at the same time as this particular targeted person or that particular targeted person happens to be. They are taking signals to your location from other gang stalkers. That's how they find you. And when they find you, they know to pester you from those same signals. And they know how to make it look as if you are trying to attack or start an instigation or an altercation with them. Okay, that's what gang stalkers do. They follow targets using a signaling mechanism, and then when they get to you, they try to cause some sort of a dust-up or a problem or trouble or some sort of a fracas so as to get their targeted person either harmed, arrested, or killed. And that's what brings joy to their lives. That's what makes their lives purposeful. That's what makes their lives meaningful, being able to cause problems in the lives of other people. All right, it's called misery. And there's an old saying that is popular in the United States that says that misery loves company. And some people are willing to use state resources to generate misery for other people. Not because you deserve it, but because they themselves are miserable. They themselves are purposeless. They themselves are unfulfilled, and they themselves are disgusted with their own life. How does a person remedy that horror of being just another lump of flesh making its way through this life until you expire? Okay, that prospect scares people. And some people have this mentality where if I can't make trouble for others, if I can't extinguish the life of others more quickly, if I can't find a way to extinguish the life of another person generally, if I can't find a way to control another person's life and run it into the ground or diminish the quality of another person's life, I could never feel better about my own life. You see? And that type of tomfoolery is what gang stalking is founded upon. There are enough useful idiots in this country, across the country, all 50 states, including Hawaii and Alaska, that would love to participate in a state-sanctioned signaling mechanism and disruption protocol against other citizens to make them feel better about themselves because they feel inadequate. You see, what makes a person feel less inadequate than being able to infringe on the rights, liberties, and the very life of another person? Okay, gang stalking plays off of that mechanism, the feeling of human purposelessness. That is what gang stalking feeds off of. It gives people who are dissatisfied with the quality and the trajectory of their own life to use what looks like a really smart, really tough, really well-resourced, really well-sophisticated disruption mechanism. Having used this disruption mechanism against anyone they are signaled to. All right, being able to casually walk past a person and insult them, or get together with some of your buddies and disrupt or disenfranchise or otherwise harm or attack a person, that makes some people feel better about themselves. Not even necessarily than the next person, but it makes them feel better about themselves in relation to other people who they may have jealousy or envy or hatred or malice for. You can use a state-sanctioned signaling and disruption protocol to get in the way of anyone you are signaled to, and they can't do nothing back to you. That is a huge ego boost for gang stalkers. It's a huge ego boost. And that ego boost is what drives participation in gang stalking. And also, it is valuable to the overall enterprise itself, because the more people participate in it, the more convincing the orchestrators of this program are with respect to being able to pull more financing from the U.S. federal, state, and local establishments and legislatures to be able to purchase the kinds of military-industrial complex equipment that it takes to prosecute a gang stalking campaign. If no one's participating, then that means there's no reason to grab the revenues from the taxpayer to give to the military-industrial complex to produce the kinds of weapons and surveillance technology it takes to send back to the DOD or the DOJ specialists who on the ground act as liaisons, who mobilize undercover operatives and gang stalkers. So it's really a pretty cut and dry transaction. You just have to look it over in order to grasp the totality of it and its importance in society. It's an enterprise. And human participation drives the enterprise. You see, you want to make gang stalking shrivel up and go away? Take away its participation. Stop people from doing it. Make gang stalking a felony, punishable by up to 30 years in prison and a $45,000 fine. That'll stop people from doing it. Why? Well, most people, I'm not going to say everybody, but most people would do anything in their power to avoid either a 30-year prison sentence or a $45,000 fine. Why? Because most people don't want to be incarcerated against their will for that amount of time for any reason. And also, most people don't have $45,000 to shell out. So because of those truths, You want to make gang stalking go away? Make it a crime. It's not enough to stigmatize it. You can stigmatize it till the cows come home. People are still going to participate in it because it gives them the opportunity to physically, verbally, financially, and occupationally harm other people with no recourse. There are people that treasure the opportunity to do harm or maliciousness to other people without punishment or consequence or recourse. There are people in this world that would jump at the opportunity. What? A state-sanctioned signaling mechanism that's countrywide? And there's how many people participating in it? How many millions? And you mean I can actually jump into this thing and I can actually act like a total jerkwad anytime, anywhere to anybody, including physical attacks? All I got to do is wait for a signal, you say, and I'll get away free and clear every time. And I can do this stuff to men, women, and children and get away with it. And the U.S. federal government is financing and has sustained this. Well, sign me and my family up. Okay, that's the attitude towards it that a lot of Americans would have. As a matter of fact, a few of them will probably print out flyers and hand it out to all their neighbors as well. Hey, join the gang stalking conundrum in the U.S. You will have the time of your life. You can do things at other people's expense. You'll have a wonderful time in the workplace. You can actually work on getting people harmed and you can stage car accidents against people. You can attack men, women, and children at will. You can get people fired that you don't like. There's all kinds of benefits, and you become a part of something. You become a part of a fraternal order that is countrywide, that includes politicians, military personnel, police officers, teachers, lawyers, business professionals, doctors, you name it. They all participate in the same mechanism, and you mean to tell me that I can be a part of that and do dirt with them and get away with it every time? Hell, sign me up and I'll take flyers to church so everybody in my church can sign up too, my pastor included. So that's what we targeted individuals are up against, but at least we know what we're up against. All right, gang stalking was at one time a very formidable opponent to the life of anyone who was a targeted individual. And the reason it was a formidable opponent is because you didn't know the nature and character or the function of the opponent that you were going up against. But once information on clandestine gang stalking leaked out into the internet and targeted individuals like myself were able to read about it and compare our own experiences to it and weigh it against various governmental programs that have existed in the past, attach historical narratives to it, relevant historical narratives to it, and observe it up close and personal on a daily basis now that you know what it is. That gives the targeted individual the opportunity for victory because you now know your opponent. You now see that it has, what you're experiencing has a name, it has a face, it has a modus operandi, and it has a price tag. Before targeted persons knew about it, or what it was called and how it worked and how it was something that affected lots of people in a similar fashion, all a targeted person can do was just sit around and be at awe at the synchronized thuggery that was constantly happening around him or her. There was no way to operationalize what was happening to you. But now that we know it's called gang stalking, now that we know that it has an operating procedure, now that we know that it's military-industrial complex driven, and that it has federal, state, and local governmental elements attached to it, including that of the Departments of Defense and Departments of Justice, which it hurts me to say, because I think there are some very top-notch talented people that work in both the Departments of Defense and Department of Justice. But we must understand that Departments of Defense, national security agencies, intelligence agencies, federal law enforcement agencies, they have clandestine operations in them. They have covert operations in them, especially the CIA. There's no telling what kind of covert activity the CIA is up to these days. And I'm not saying the United States is the only one. I mean, probably national or intelligence agencies around the world have secret or covert mechanisms and protocols and investigations that are hidden in nature for this reason or that. Maybe they think the American people are too stupid to grasp the importance of them, so they keep them hidden from us. Being able to manipulate large numbers of people without them getting wise is a business. That's something people have been trying to do since the beginning of time. Being the guy that got over on everybody. Talk about an ego boost. Me personally, I don't appreciate these thugs. And when I say thugs, I'm not talking about any particular demographic or socioeconomic status. I'm talking about anybody who would get up out of bed and step out of the house knowing that they're going to, when they step out of the house, they're going to participate in a state-sanctioned signaling mechanism that's going to lead them to a person that they are required or expected to pester. Anyone who would get up out of bed, prepare themselves for a full day of that, in my estimation, is a thug. Now, when it comes right down to it, I think a government, particularly a federal government, ought to implement policies that make people more perfect and not less perfect. If you take a program like clandestine gang stalking, knowing what you know about clandestine gang stalking, dear listener, particularly that which you've learned from listening to my program, does clandestine gang stalking make a person more perfect or less perfect? It makes you less perfect. Why? Because you have officially and willingly suspended your own judgment. You've suspended your individuality. You've suspended your conscience. You've suspended your sense of right and wrong. And you've suspended any fortitude, spine, or virtue that you ever had in your entire mind and body. In exchange for a herd mentality building, signal flinging, airborne bacteria flinging, derived car accident causing, workplace sabotage initiating, nationwide, system-wide, mob mentality thug unit with degenerate qualities. All this so the U.S. federal establishment will have more of a reason to purchase sophisticated surveillance, tracking, and disruption equipment from the military-industrial complex at a premium, courtesy of the taxpayer. What does it do for you and me? Well, it makes sheeps out of gang stalkers and victims out of targeted individuals. What does it do for the U.S. federal establishment? Well, if you give enough money to the military-industrial complex, they will reward you in election time with campaign donations. And what does it do for the military-industrial complex? Well, With all the government contracts it's securing in providing the kinds of surveillance, weapons, and disruption technology, data interception technology, that it takes to prosecute a gang stalking campaign, okay? Selling enough of this to the U.S. federal establishment for any operation, certainly, I mean, it raises revenues for the military-industrial complex, and it gives the military-industrial complex the opportunity to experience stock price raises and higher dividends for shareholders. So when you combine the benefits and the I guess you might call it the more deleterious elements of clandestine gang stalking, the people are the one that suffer, because the everyman, you essentially sell your soul and your family's soul to the military-industrial complex for the opportunity to participate in some state-sanctioned signaling that really ain't doing nothing but make you look like a useful idiot, especially to guys like me, a targeted individual. I'm reporting everything you do to the whole world on social media. How does that make you feel as a stalker? Knowing that this signaling mechanism that you thought was so cool and made you so big and bad got exposed in such a way, and not only exposed, but expose you and your family and put your business on social media. How does that make you feel? It's gotta feel horrible. I'm glad I'm not a gang stalker, because really it was only a matter of time before this thing got exposed in the first place. So enjoy it while you can. Maybe you and your wife can go out for a nice evening one day. Maybe you can take her to a 5-star restaurant and treat her to a candlelight dinner at one of the finest restaurants in town. You can get her French red wine imported from Belgium. You can give her caviar and filet mignon. You can give her roasted asparagus with exotic spices. You can get her a souffle dessert imported from Germany. You can get her a rose bed table with beautiful silk tapestries and a nice dim lit room and a beautiful menu of exotic foods and desserts, and just treat her to the most wonderful night she can possibly imagine before you have to tell her that you're a gang stalking schmuck and that Emmanuel Isaiah Smith exposed you on the world stage and that you and her can't do gang stalking no more because it makes you look like a couple of useful idiots. All right? And don't forget to tell your kids that too, that this state-sanctioned thuggery mechanism that daddy participates in is the reason that the household is so unstable. And why your dad's the man of the house there is afraid to show his face anywhere because he's a gang stalker. So I mean, there's really a really dramatic and horrible and quite frankly a real pitiful fall that these gang stalkers have experienced. I mean, some of them have not yet discovered that what they do is called clandestine gang stalking. They still think they're participating in something cool. And that's sad. It's sad. It's sad to see a family of people go out on a nice day. Maybe they go to the beach. Maybe they go to the mall. Maybe they go to their local park. Maybe they have a nice day at their local library. Maybe they go to a nice restaurant, or maybe they go somewhere nice where the kids can play, or maybe they go to a nice big retail store as a family and go shopping. And the dad is not telling the wife and the kids that he's a total schmuck and that he's forcing them to participate in something that's going to make them all look like idiots. And I think that this is going to end up hurting a lot of families once this thing goes public as clandestine gang stalking. I think that once people who go out on as a family and do these stalking expeditions find out that the man of the house, who's supposed to be the protector and the husband and the guiding light of the home, the provider, the stabilizer, all of these things, is treating his family like a bunch of jerks. Okay, by taking them out on stalking expeditions and not telling them what he's up to. All right, stop lying to your wife and your kids, and stop lying to the American people. Okay, you're a schmuck, and you take your family out pretending that you're going to treat them to a nice day out, when really you just go out and you just acting like a jerk in front of them, in front of everybody that's looking at you. All right, you're conducting yourself like a schmuck, dads. Because you're not telling your wife and your kids that you're going on stalking expeditions at the expense of the American taxpayer. All right, I don't care if you're a well-meaning guy. I don't care if you're the kind of guy that wouldn't hurt a fly. You could genuinely love your wife and kids, but if you take them out on stalking expeditions and you're not telling them that they're out on stalking expeditions, then that makes you a schmuck. Because you're putting your wife and your kids in danger. Okay, gang stalking is a dangerous, dangerous thing. You know why? Because there's derived car accidents that happen in gang stalking as a result of stalkers who were signaled to smash the gas or make this right turn real quick or make this left turn real quick. How do you know that the next stalking expedition you take your wife and kids on isn't going to result in a T-bone accident or a 5-car collision accident or a 10-car collision accident? Next thing, you and your wife and your kids are all smashed up in the car accident, and all of you are in the hospital, next thing you know, in a body cast. You understand? That's the kind of stuff that you're putting your family at risk in when you take them out on stalking expeditions. And the reason stalking expeditions, ladies and gentlemen, are of particular importance to me right now is because I'm at Dadeland Mall in downtown Dadeland, which is right on the border of Kendall and Miami, Florida, and I'm seeing it everywhere. And you know who the stalkers are. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been looking into this for 10 years now from a professional perspective, but I've been experiencing it in various capacities over the last 30 years. And over the last 10 years, I've been experiencing it in heightened levels, not only here in the state of Florida, but also in Ohio and Tennessee. You know, dads, you're putting your families at risk taking them out on stalker expeditions. You know, you risk getting into a car accident. Gang stalkers do derived and staged car accidents. And you're putting your family at risk. How do you know you don't get into an accident on your way home, dads? Gang stalkers cause intentional accidents if they're signaled to. So by taking your family out on a stalker expedition, you put them at risk of a car accident. Just so you can get to the mall, so somebody can signal you or point you to the next target that you can walk over to and pester and annoy. Right in front of your wife and kids. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. And some of these stalker dads are teaching their kids how to do gang stalking. They're raising a new generation of stalkers right in front of our eyes, ladies and gentlemen. And some of you are doing it in the name of Jesus Christ, which is to me extremely funny. Extremely funny. I mean, on Sunday, you act like you're praying and taking communion and taking sacrament and going to Sunday school and reading your Bible and fellowshipping with other congregants in your church and being a good Christian and learning the scriptures. Maybe you're singing with the choir. You're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing those, you're doing these, all in the name of Jesus Christ. And then after service, you take your family out on a stalking expedition. And some of you think you're doing that in the name of Jesus Christ. It really is pitiful. It really is. You know, and here's what I want to do. All right, this is called Blistering Rebuke. I mean, it's blistering enough. Okay, and what I'd like to do is I'd like to address everyone that's listening to me right this second, right now, with surveillance equipment. Because I just heard one of you say, and you don't know that I can hear you say these things, but I can hear you say them. Okay, lack of professionalism is to blame. Get better surveillance equipment, because I can hear you mumbling. Okay, I just heard some schmuck that's around here saying to a microphone, is this supposed to be funny? Or does he think he's funny? Or something to that effect. No, I don't think I'm funny, schmuck. I think you're funny. Because you sit around in vehicles with surveillance equipment and you listen to me, even though I don't know who the hell you are. You know who I am, but I don't know who the hell you are, and I don't want to know you either. You could get to stepping for all I care, the way you act. And you're sitting here making snide remarks about a person that you are surveilling. You understand? Get better surveillance equipment, you schmuck. The stuff you guys are using is so primitive, I can hear you talking on it. And so can my significant other, Lori, too. She can hear you talking on it as well. And she doesn't know anything. She doesn't know as much about this as I do, but she can hear your punk asses talking just like I can. Get better surveillance equipment, you idiots. And quit talking about me bad while you're surveilling me, because I can hear you saying what you're saying. Get better bugging devices or whatever you use. You guys are supposed to be doing a stakeout. I don't know if you're gang stalkers or if you're members of the DOD or if you're members of the DOJ or if you're undercover operatives. I don't know what law enforcement or military capacity you work in. But it's like this. If you're going to surveil me, if you're going to watch me, do it with some class and do it with some professionalism. Because there's nothing more embarrassing than going on a stakeout or whatever you're doing right now, and you're talking crap about me while I'm doing a lecture for my business that I started, and I can hear you. Be professional if you're going to surveil me, goddammit. You hear me? So, ultimately, what we have is a degenerate, defective, deleterious, unprofessional, and quite frankly, it's just plain silly, is what it is. And you know, it boggles the mind that this American establishment, this same establishment that was at one time admired around the world, it's not even admired by its own citizens now, because you have decided to allow certain segments of the population to use a tomfoolish, silly, disruptive, harmful, stupid, deleterious, and unconstitutional surveillance, tracking, signaling, disruption, annoyance, germ spreading, and attack mechanism against unsuspecting United States citizens as they go about their daily business, not soliciting your presence at all. You do it because someone signaled you to do it. And regardless of the consequences for you or the person you're watching, you do it anyhow. Some of you at the expense of your own families because you're taking your families with you. That's not admirable. What are you trying to prove? That you can put your family in danger over and over and over and over and over again without anything happening? Grow up. Grow up and get a life. I can think of 1,000,001 things that a father can do for his wife and kids, then go on stalking expeditions in public places and trying to prove to them and to everybody watching that you are a total jerk. And my significant other thinks that way about you too. She's just not quite as vocal as I am about it. All right. And as I do this lecture, I'm going to invoke my First Amendment right to the United States Constitution to say what I say when I say it. All right, this is the blistering rebuke that you are hearing, ladies and gentlemen. It's just time to let these stalkers have it. Especially the ones that use their families as weapons against other people. Who does that? The world we live in is volatile enough for dads and husbands to be deceiving their families, acting like they're going out on a nice day on the town, but really they're going out on a stalking expedition, and the dad's running around taking signals from people. The wife and kids have no idea what's going on. They're horrified at what the dad is doing. The wife's considering divorce. The kids are looking at their dad and saying, you know what? I'm going to idolize somebody else. Why? Because dad's acting like a total prick, particularly out in public. So, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to a topic like this, where it's just sort of a chaotic mesh of opinions on persons or the type of persons that I consider to be useful idiots and totally degenerate and deleterious to society, I have to speak my mind on it. I have to be thorough with my words. Some people might say, well, you live in Miami-Dade County. At least 60% of the people that you encounter on a daily basis, even more than 60% depending on the city in Miami-Dade County you're residing in, you run into a lot of Cuban people. What do you think of Cuban people? I mean, listen, I don't speak Spanish. I'm not from Cuba. I do know that last month, the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Mike Waltz, said in front of a 100-member panel in front of the United Nations that Cuba is a state sponsor of terrorism, human trafficking, and narcotics cartels. Okay? I'm not here to say that every Cuban person is going to be on board with that. I'm not saying every Cuban person agrees with or supports the Cuban government. But I am saying that the Cuban government, it's been proven many times over the past 43 years, is a state sponsor of terrorism. And that concerns me because Cuba is only 101 miles away from where I'm sitting right now. So, I just want what any United States citizen would want. Okay, I want transparency in government. I want my inalienable rights. I want my constitutional rights. I want the Bill of Rights to be accurately applied to me. I want to live in a constitutional republic. I want to live in a democracy. I want to live in a country that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. I want to live in a country that has a dictatorship of the proletariat, one that minimizes the tyranny of the masses. That's my ideal country. And if the United States cannot render that to me as a sovereign United States citizen, then I'm going to move out of the country and I'm going to find another country to live in. It doesn't matter. I have 100 different countries I'd be happy in swirling around in my head constantly. There are 100 different countries I'd rather live in as I stand here this day. Because my country has allowed thuggish, degenerate, and anti-constitutional protocols to enter into my life's trajectory in such a way so as to not only make my life less prosperous, but to put that very life in danger constantly. I am not going to honor a country that allows something like that to creep into its legal code. I don't care if it is national security or intelligence mechanisms that makes that happen. All right? Can you imagine a world where federal, state, and local military, semi-military, law enforcement, and semi-law enforcement agencies are allowed to train and send out plainclothes undercovers out into the world to do nothing other than to watch people and wreak havoc? That is the America that we live in, and that's not the America that I want to live in. And it doesn't appear that Congress is particularly concerned with the catastrophic mess that it has allowed to implement itself into the U.S. legal code. So, if there's nothing Congress can do about it, if there's nothing I can do about it but make my thoughts known on videos and articles, all right, without any reasonable expectation of the activity ceasing, if the United States is willing to let a country that it has officially labeled a state sponsor of terrorism send illegal aliens here constantly to the tune of a few million over the past 43 years, well, I really don't know what to say about this country aside from bye-bye. Yeah, I'm a political dissident. And after having experienced gang stalking in various capacities for 30 years and in heightened levels for the past 10 years, you're damn right I'm ready to leave. I think more highly of myself than a person who is going to allow a government to allow a cabal of federally authorized dogs to use a signaling operation or mechanism and other covert communication mechanisms to quietly tell other people where I'm at so they can approach me, confront me, annoy me, pester me, or attack me. Okay? I hope that I have not given off the impression as a sovereign United States citizen to my government or to any public or private entity that I am going to tolerate that. I have no intention whatsoever of tolerating that. Not only that, but I'm willing to take what I know and put it on the internet for free so the whole world can see it with the click of a mouse. You know why? Because gang stalkers and apparently the military-industrial complex, the liaisons and undercover operatives that participate, don't care much about America's image. All they care about is their own ego, having fun, and getting through this life as comfortably as possible, and that's it. And I think that's unfortunate, because the image of this country is going to suffer because of clandestine gang stalking, that I can promise you. Because what happened to Christian Nation? What happened to Shining City on the Hill? What happened to the freest country on earth? What happened to the greatest democracy on earth? All that got flushed down the toilet the minute the national security and intelligence apparatuses in this country decided to make a public spectacle of these constitutional precepts and essentially recruit as many U.S. citizens as possible to act as pawns in what you might describe as state-sanctioned thuggery. Okay, it feels good to control lots of people, doesn't it? It feels good. It feels good to control people and make money while you do it. All right, that's what gang stalking is all about. Gang stalkers think they're independent, but they are not. They are being controlled remotely by national security and intelligence actors. You see? And as time rolls on, and as more civil rights infractions, constitutional infractions, civil rights infractions, and various other infractions are committed by Team A against Team B, Team A being the stalkers, Team B being the targets, America's image is going to start looking worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And you know what China should do? You know what China should do as a wake-up call to the United States? China should go ahead and devalue the US dollar. That will give the United States federal establishment something to consider as it goes about its business using what is tantamount to a crime against humanity on a daily basis, but using other U.S. citizens to commit that crime on a daily basis so as to keep your own hands clean. The orchestrators of gang stalking aren't getting people sick, the stalkers are. The orchestrators of gang stalking aren't running people over with their vehicles from having received a signal, the stalkers are. The liaisons aren't the ones perpetuating workplace mobbing against targeted people so as to sabotage their careers. The stalkers are. The liaisons aren't out there committing acts of state-sanctioned murder, state-sanctioned assault, state-sanctioned robbery, state-sanctioned vandalism, state-sanctioned burglary, state-sanctioned food contamination, state-sanctioned medicine contamination, state-sanctioned interpersonal relationship destruction. The stalkers are. You understand? The stalkers are the ones at the ground level. They're the ones participating in all the thuggery, and they're the ones that got all the dirt in their hands. The liaisons are at the top of the matter, and they're the ones that are signaling and driving the action. Now, I don't know if this activity is carried out in Cuba or not. I have never been to Cuba, and I will never visit Cuba, having visited Miami-Dade County. But I can promise you this: if I see anybody from Cuba participating in any activity that looks terroristic to me, I'm reporting it to the FBI. And I encourage my significant other, Lori, to do the same. Imagine a world, ladies and gentlemen, where you go to the polls to vote For a president, it could be a senator, it could be a congressperson, it could be federal judges are appointed. We don't really elect them, but imagine any federal election that you could possibly think of, and you go to vote, and all the candidates have the exact same name. What would you do? You would take the ballot to your ballot worker or your poll worker, and you'd say, hey, I think I have a faulty ballot. And the poll worker says to you, no, that ballot is accurate. And you say, no, this ballot could not be accurate because all the candidates have the same name and the same party affiliation. Where's the variation? And the poll worker says, take it or leave it. Cast your vote and put it in the machine, or put your ballot down and get the hell out of here. What would you do? Would you cast your vote, or would you leave? Me personally, I'd cast a vote. At least my voice is heard. But ultimately, that's what gang stalking is, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody becomes, it makes people monolithic. Okay, there's no longer any variation in opinion. There's no longer any political discourse or debate. There's no longer any differences in political workings. I mean, particularly at the federal level, everyone shares the same, everyone pulls from the same idea pool for political guidance. And the Democrats are being just as quiet on gang stalking as the Republicans are, at least in public. I think there's probably some talking about it behind closed doors, but there aren't any federal politicians talking about that any more than there are any federal politicians talking about Cuba being a state-sanctioned sponsor of terrorism. So, I mean, it's just a matter of knowing your politicians and asking them, hey, can you talk about this a little bit more? Can you talk about that a little bit more? Can you ensure that our rights are being upheld and our votes are being counted? Thank you for tuning in.
Ronald Bruidgam in het 21ste pianoconcert van Mozart. Hier een praktisch uitverkochte grote zaal van Tivoli Vredenburg bij dit Avontos vrijdagconcert. Aan het begin van de festiviteiten rond 40 jaar omroepmuziek in Vredenburg.